Across the Southwest, abandoned mobile homes sit unwanted for years. Some can be acquired for little more than back taxes, sometimes just a few $100s. For retirees struggling with rising rents, these forgotten trailers offer a path to debt-free housing. This video shows how ordinary people turn them into affordable off-grid homes powered by solar energy, often for less than the price of a used car. There are real obstacles. The titles are a mess, often unclear or tied up in old ownership records that take time and patience to resolve. The wiring in a 50-year-old trailer is not just outdated, it is dangerous. And if you trust it without inspection, it can become a fire risk overnight. Cooling is another problem. A swamp cooler may work in dry heat, but fails when humidity rises. And the desert environment itself can be unforgiving to anyone unprepared. The septic question is the one most people avoid, and the one that most often causes legal trouble or eviction when handled incorrectly. Yet every one of these problems has practical solutions, usually not found in glossy renovation videos, but in RV communities, county offices, and informal networks where people share what actually works. What follows is the real operating manual, including the unglamorous fixes that make the difference between failure and sustainable living. The first thing to address, because it is the question in every comment section, is the title. How do you legally own a trailer that was abandoned? The answer depends on one distinction that almost nobody explains correctly: whether the trailer is titled as a vehicle or as real property. Most older single-wides in the desert are still titled through the state motor vehicle department, the same way a car is, because the owner never did the paperwork to permanently affix it to land. That is good news. A vehicle-titled trailer can be transferred through an abandoned property or mechanics lien process that most state departments of motor vehicles handle for a few $100s. If the trailer has been sitting in a park, the park owner can file an abandoned unit lien for unpaid lot rent, take the title, and sell it to you clean. The trailers titled as real property are the ones to avoid, because clearing those requires a quiet title lawsuit and months of court time. The strategy is to ask the county assessor one question before you spend $1. Is this unit on the personal property tax roll or the real property roll? Personal property means it is a vehicle. That is the one you want. The second question is where these trailers actually are, because the listings do not appear where people look. They are almost never on Zillow. The fastest path is the county treasurer's tax deed and tax lien list, published quarterly, which names every parcel and mobile home with delinquent taxes and the exact amount owed. In many desert counties, that figure is under $600. The second route is the mobile home parks themselves. A park manager with 3 abandoned units rotting on rentable lots will often hand one over for the cost of the title transfer just to get a paying tenant onto the pad. The third route is the local Facebook must-go groups and the bulletin board at the rural hardware store, where a free trailer U-Haul post appears every few weeks because the owner needs the lot cleared. The trailers that are genuinely free are the ones that cannot be moved without falling apart, which matters only if you plan to move it. If you are buying the trailer where it already sits on a rented or owned pad, its roadworthiness is irrelevant. The price question, which deserves more honesty than the renovation shows offer. The trailer itself ranges from $1 to maybe $2,000 for one that is structurally sound. The back taxes and title transfer run $300 to $800. But the trailer is the cheap part, and anybody who tells you the whole project is $500 is lying or leaving things out. The realistic all-in number for a livable, solar-powered desert trailer is closer to $4,500, and most of that is the solar and the water. The $500 figure that gets put in thumbnails is only the acquisition cost. The honest budget is this: trailer and title, $800. Solar system, $1,800. Water and septic solution, $700. Cooling, $500. Wiring repair and safety, $400. Tools and incidentals, $300. That is roughly $4,500 for a paid-off home that costs almost nothing to run afterward. Against $1,600 a month for an apartment, the entire build pays for itself in under 3 months. After that, the recurring cost is the lot rent, which in the cheap desert parks runs $250 to $400 a month. And in some cases, nothing at all. If the trailer sits on a parcel of cheap desert land, the owner bought outright for a few $1,000s. A note before the specifics. This video documents a growing feature of the American retirement crisis, where the median Social Security check no longer covers median rent in much of the country, leaving a widening gap between income and basic housing costs. It is not a recommendation or encouragement to replicate any setup shown here. Converting, occupying, or permanently living in an old trailer can trigger county building codes, zoning restrictions, and health department septic regulations that vary widely by jurisdiction, and failing to comply can lead to fines, forced removal, or red tag condemnation of the property. We do not endorse bypassing permits or ignoring local regulations. Housing rules exist to ensure safety, sanitation, and structural integrity, even when they feel slow or restrictive in practice. If you are a retiree or someone at risk of housing insecurity, support is available through local services. In the United States, dialing 211 can connect you to housing assistance, and the elder care locator at 1-800-677-1116 can help you find programs, benefits, and community resources in your area. What follows is reported and contextualized to document a broader systemic issue, not to present a blueprint. It reflects the growing reality that many fixed-income Americans are being pushed toward informal or alternative housing arrangements as traditional rent and retirement systems fail to keep pace with real-world costs of living. Step 1. The buy and the inspection. Before any money changes hands, the trailer gets a 20-minute inspection that decides whether it is a home or a money pit. 3 things matter and nothing else does at this stage. First, the floor. Walk every square foot. A spongy floor near the bathroom or the back wall means water has been rotting the subfloor and the joists, and that repair costs more than the trailer. A solid floor means the shell is sound. Second, the roof. A flat or low-pitch metal roof with no daylight visible from inside is fine. Almost any roof can be sealed. Standing water stains and a sagging ceiling mean rot above, which is the same death sentence as a soft floor. Third, look for the metal data plate by the front door or in a kitchen cabinet. A trailer built after June 1976 was made to the federal HUD code, which means better wiring and insulation than the pre-1976 units that were built to no standard at all. Pre-1976 is not a deal breaker, but it tells you the wiring must be assumed dead. Step 2. The wiring, because this is what burns these trailers down. The original aluminum wiring in a pre-1980 trailer is the single most dangerous thing in the unit. Aluminum expands and contracts, works its connections loose over decades, and starts fires behind the wall where nobody sees it. The fix that experienced desert renovators use is not to rewire the whole trailer, which is expensive and unnecessary if you are running on solar. The fix is to abandon the trailer's original 120-volt electrical system entirely, leave it dead, and build a separate, simple, low-voltage solar system that has nothing to do with the old wiring. The old breaker panel stays off. You run your own new circuits for exactly what you need: lights, a fan, a fridge, charging. This is safer, cheaper, and avoids the inspection problems that come with tying new wire into a 50-year-old panel. Step 3. The solar system, which is the heart of the whole thing and where the real money goes. For 1 or 2 retirees in a single wide, the documented working setup is a 400 to 600 watt panel array, a 40 amp MPPT charge controller, a 200 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, and a 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter. The lithium battery is the part people resist because it costs more upfront, around $500, but a lithium iron phosphate battery survives roughly 10 years and thousands of cycles, where a cheap lead-acid battery dies in 2 summers because desert heat destroys it. Buying lead-acid twice a year is more expensive than buying lithium once. The panels mount on the roof, or, better in the desert, on a simple ground rack angled south, which keeps the heat off the trailer roof and lets you sweep dust off them without a ladder. This system runs LED lighting, phone and laptop charging, a 12-volt direct current chest fridge, ceiling fans, and a swamp cooler through the day. The full kit, bought as components rather than a brand-name solar generator, runs about $1,800. The same capacity sold as an all-in-one unit costs 3 times that. Step 4. Cooling. Because the desert does not kill people in winter. It kills them in July at 115 degrees Fahrenheit. The mistake everybody makes is buying a single-window air conditioner, which on solar would drain the entire battery bank in 2 hours. The working desert approach is layered, the same way cold climate survival is layered, just in reverse. The base layer is the evaporative cooler, the swamp cooler, which uses 1/10 of the power of a compressor air conditioner and works beautifully in the dry desert air for most of the year. It only fails during the brief humid monsoon weeks in late summer. The second layer is shade and mass. A simple shade structure or even a cheap tarp, suspended 1 foot above the metal roof with an air gap, stops the sun from cooking the roof. And that air gap matters exactly as much as it does for insulation. Direct sun on bare metal is the difference between a trailer that holds 85 degrees inside and one that holds 105 degrees. The third layer is reflective foil insulation, the radiant barrier, stapled inside the ceiling and walls, which bounces heat back out before it enters. The fourth layer is behavioral. Open everything at night when the desert temperature drops 40 degrees, flush the cool air through, then seal the trailer at dawn and trap that coolness inside the thermal mass for the day. With all 4 layers, a 12-volt fan and a swamp cooler are enough. Without them, no amount of air conditioning is. Step 5. Water. Because there is no city main running to an abandoned desert trailer. The water sources are predictable and worked out. The base option for a trailer on a park pad is the park's existing water hookup, which is usually included in lot rent. For a trailer on raw land, the documented approach is hauling a 275-gallon IBC tote, the white plastic cube in a metal cage that sells used for $50 to $100, mounted on a small trailer or a stand. Most rural desert towns have a bulk water fill station, often at the fire station or a coin-operated kiosk, where a fill costs a few dollars per 100 gallons. A 275-gallon tote, refilled twice a month, covers 1 or 2 people for drinking, cooking, and sponge bathing comfortably. The tote feeds the trailer through a small 12-volt RV water pump, the same $40 pump every recreational vehicle uses, which pressurizes the existing trailer plumbing and runs off the solar battery. Rainwater is not a reliable desert source. The haul and store method is what actually works. 2 drops of unscented bleach per gallon keeps stored water potable for 6 months. Step 6. The part everybody skips, which is sewage. This is the question that gets people red tagged and evicted, and the renovation channels never touch it because the answer is unglamorous. If the trailer is on a park pad, it is plumbed into the park septic or sewer already, and this step is done. If it is on raw land, the old septic tank, if there is one, must be inspected and is often collapsed. The documented low-cost legal path is a composting toilet, the self-contained kind that separates liquid from solid and costs around $300 to $500, which most rural desert counties permit far more readily than they permit a new septic system. Gray water, the water from the sink and the sponge bath basin, can in many desert jurisdictions be legally routed to a simple mulch basin or a planted depression outside, because several arid states specifically loosened gray water rules to encourage reuse. The rule that keeps people out of trouble is to check the county health department's gray water and composting toilet policy before building anything, because this is the single regulation most likely to trigger a condemnation notice. Step 7. Sealing the shell, which is what turns a derelict box into a home that holds temperature. The desert sun degrades everything it touches over decades. The roof gets sealed with elastomeric white roof coating, the thick rubbery paint that rolls on like house paint and costs about $80 a bucket. White is not a style choice. A white roof runs 50 to 60 degrees cooler than a dark one in direct desert sun, which directly lowers the cooling load on the solar system. Every window and door gap gets weather stripped and the seams get caulked, both to keep the cooled air in and to keep the desert dust out, because fine dust gets into everything and is the constant low-grade enemy of an off-grid desert home. The underbelly, the bottom of the trailer, gets checked and patched, because that is where rodents and snakes enter and where rats will chew the new solar wiring if they get in. Step 8. What happens if the county notices? The consequence depends heavily on the jurisdiction, and this is where the desert matters. The reason these conversions cluster in specific counties, the rural stretches of San Bernardino County, Nye County in Nevada, Luna and Sierra counties in New Mexico, Cochise County in Arizona, is that these are some of the least code-enforced places in the country, where a single overwhelmed inspector covers thousands of square miles and complaint-driven enforcement is the only kind that happens. The practical risk is not jail. It is a red tag notice giving you time to bring the unit up to code or vacate, and the most common trigger is a neighbor complaint, not a patrol. The people who do this successfully do two things. They keep the exterior tidy, so nothing invites a complaint, and they get the cheap, legitimate permits that are available, the septic or composting permit especially, so the one thing an inspector is most likely to check is already handled. A clean exterior and a legal toilet make a converted trailer nearly invisible to the enforcement system. The alternative that almost nobody talks about. For a retiree who can put together $8,000 to $12,000 instead of $4,500, the documented step-up is buying a small parcel of raw desert land outright. 5 acres in the cheap desert counties still sells for a few $1,000s, and placing the converted trailer on owned land instead of a rented pad. On owned land, there is no lot rent, no park manager, and no landlord who can sell the lot out from under you. The land becomes an asset that holds value. The trailer becomes a legal accessory dwelling in counties that permit it, and the recurring cost drops to property taxes that are often under $200 a year. For somebody whose only income is Social Security, owning the dirt under the home is the difference between precarious and permanent. The catch is the upfront capital and the homework on zoning, because not every parcel allows a dwelling. Where it is permitted, the arrangement is fully above board and costs less per year than a single month of apartment rent. The bigger system question, which is the most liked comment on every video like this one. Why does a country with this much empty land and this many abandoned trailers leave its retirees doing math like this at all? The answer is not satisfying. The trailers were abandoned because manufactured housing was sold for 40 years as the affordable option, and then trapped its owners in land lease parks, where the rent on the dirt rises every year while the home itself depreciates to nothing. The retiree doing this is not failing. They worked, they paid in, and they reached the end of a working life to find that the Social Security check the system promised them covers groceries or rent, but not both. There are roughly 60 million Americans over 65. A growing share of them retire with almost no savings into a housing market that was built around the assumption of a paid-off house they do not have. The abandoned trailer in the desert is not a lifestyle. It is the cheapest legal threshold of shelter a fixed income can clear, and the people clearing it figured it out without help from any agency, any program, or any politician. Until something fundamental changes, the math will keep pushing retired Americans toward the cheapest option that meets the minimum threshold of a roof, water, and power they can afford. Right now, in the desert Southwest, that option is a $500 trailer, a few solar panels, and a tote of hauled water. If you got something out of this video, subscribe. We document the parts of the retirement crisis the headlines skip. Share this with somebody who needs to know that $4,500 buys a paid-off home that never sends an electric bill. In a country that decided $1,600 a month for an apartment was normal for people living on $1,400. The trailers are there. The sun is free. The people doing this worked it out themselves, and all they needed was somebody to be honest about the titles, the wiring, the water, the sewage, and the heat. If this gave you a fresh perspective, hit subscribe and stay connected.